is up? Welcome back to the Chase Down. And before we get started, make sure to hit that like and that subscribe button. That helps me out a lot. Thank you so much. And let's get started. The Oklahoma City Thunder have forced the Houston Rockets to a Game 7 in the first round. Thunder won 104-100. In Game 6, a pretty good game the whole way. I believe there was like 14 lead changes and 11 ties throughout the game. Chris Paul was so clutch in the fourth quarter. He had 28 points. He was 10 for 20. That game just came down to the wire. Thunder got out to the lead in the fourth quarter. Lou Dort had a good fourth quarter. He ended up with 13 points. He hit two big threes there in that fourth quarter, hit one on the wing, one in the corner, and he also had a good pass out to Darius Baisley. He drove to the lane, kicked out, hit Darius Baisley. Darius Baisley knocks down three, does what Baze does, just doing his thing. It was looking kind of shaky there at the end of that game. Thunder got out to the lead, then the Rockets went on a run. All of a sudden, James Harden was cooking, and then that last 3 minutes, that's when Chris Paul took over. He comes back, hits a three in Robert Covington's face from the top of the wing, from the top of the key, then goes out to the wing, hits a three in Robert Covington's face again, and then all of a sudden it's tied up. Russell Westbrook grabs the ball, he goes, scores, and now all of a sudden the Rockets are up 100-98 after Adams missed that just hook shot he had. They just got it out to Russ, and he went out there on the fast break, put the Rockets up. But then Dennis Schroede comes down. Dennis Schroede hits a clutch shot. I didn't really see anybody talking about that, but that's a clutch shot from Dennis Schroede, and that's why you got to have him out there in the clutch time. He did a pretty good job guarding James Harden. I mean, for not having Lou Dort out there that whole fourth quarter, you got to throw somebody on, throw James Harden on him. I mean, James Harden probably could have attacked the basket more on him because Dennis Schroede is just not a big body kind of guy, but Dennis did what he did, just being a pest out there. Just keep his hands in Harden's face and make him take a tough shot. Anyways, Chris Paul comes down. He's driving to the basket, gets fouled by Robert Covington again. That mismatch, Chris Paul was loving that. The Rockets just kept switching on him. They kept switching Robert Covington on him, and he took advantage of that. And Covington fouls him. Chris Paul comes down to the free throw line, knocks down two. Thunder play good defensive possession. Russ loses the ball. They didn't really go to James Harden, which I thought was weird. Thought they would go to James Harden. He was cooking at the beginning of that fourth quarter. He got them the lead, and then obviously Russ was taking the basket, but he wasn't. I mean, James Harden's your best player. Got to get him the ball. And then anyways, Thunder get the ball back off a Houston turnover. Galinari gets fouled. He goes down, knocks down a free throw. And then Rockets come down. James Harden takes a bad shot, a corner three, fadeaway shot. I don't know. That was their game plan. Just Rockets didn't have a good game plan there those last 3 minutes after Chris Paul took over. It was ISO ball. They weren't moving. James Harden was setting screens for Russell Westbrook. And they weren't giving James Harden the ball. Russ was taking the ball. I don't think that was just because Russ wanted to take the ball. That's just what ended up happening. Harden wasn't really calling for the ball. He was setting screens for Russ. They were switching. They got Dennis Schroede on him. Gilgeous-Alexander ends up guarding Harden. They don't really. I don't know. I don't really know what Houston's game plan was that third quarter. I don't really think that was all on Russ. Harden didn't act like he wants the ball, and Russ is Russ. If you want him to be the man out there, he's gonna take the ball and he's gonna take the shot. If Harden's not gonna step up and say, "Hey, dummy, give me the ball," I don't think that's all on Russ. Harden had like 5 turnovers and Russ had 7, and it's just Russ's second game back in the playoffs. He didn't really quite look like himself, but he's out there. And Russ, if Russ is out there, then he's not making any excuses. So he's playing, he's going through, he's not thinking about that quad. He was 8 for 15. It's not terrible. It's not. That's good for Russ. That's just what he does. He didn't go directly at the basket the whole night. He kind of went to the side a little bit. He missed a couple of layups, wasn't finishing as well as we know Russ can. And I think just mistake after mistake for the Rockets in those last 3 minutes, turnovers, missed shots, and then they just kept switching Robert Covington onto Chris Paul. They should have stopped switching. They should just kept whoever else was guarding him there. I mean, obviously Chris Paul, he came down, did it 3 times in a row. That's the matchup he wanted, and the Rockets just kept giving it to him. Another key in this game, and even in this whole series for me, was surprisingly Darius Baisley. Darius Baisley had 8 points, 9 rebounds, and he had 3 assists. I mean, 8 points doesn't sound like a lot, but those 9 boards is a lot. He got to the foul line. He was 5 for 6 from the foul line, and then he knocked down a 3-pointer, a big 3-pointer there in that fourth quarter. Like I said, Lou Dort drove the lane, kicked out to Baisley. Baisley knocks down the 3, hand in his face. Doesn't matter. He doesn't care. And he's just not the type of player that the Rockets went out there. So you have to take advantage of Baisley. He's just a young, athletic guy who can drive to the basket and get fouled, and he can step back to the 3 and knock down a 3. He can set screens for guys. He's just a guy that's all over the place. That's not the kind of guy the Rockets went out there, and the Thunder took advantage of that. And he's a guy who can go down and grab some boards. 9 rebounds is huge. And then he had 3 assists on top of that. So he was out there making the big plays. He drove to the basket, and before he got the charge, kicks it out to Chris Paul. Chris Paul knocks down a corner 3. Just those are the plays we're loving seeing from Darius Baisley. Game before that, Baisley had 10 points, 12 rebounds. First game of the series, Baisley had 9 points, 9 rebounds. So Thunder just have to take advantage of that. We've got to have Baisley hit 20 minutes. These last 2 games, where Baisley's played his best, 26 minutes, and the loss in Game 5, and then 22 minutes in this game. Galinari was cooking, and you didn't want to see Galinari go to the bench, but here comes Darius Baisley. He's grabbing boards. He's getting to the free throw line. He's knocking down 3s. Just a surprising help off the bench from the Thunder, and that's what they need. They need just those 8 or 9 guys, that rotation, preferably 8. I think that they can rock with that 8, Dennis Schroede, Nerlens Noel, Darius Baisley coming off the bench, just that 8-man rotation. Get Galinari some rest, get Steven Adams some rest. Those are 2 guys that we need that don't have to play 35 minutes out there. Like let those 3 guards do that. And then another thing for the Rockets, Eric Gordon didn't have a good game. He was out there 35 minutes. He played some good defense a little bit on Shea, but he only had 9 points. He was 3 for 12, 1 for 6 from 3. He did have 6 assists, but he was minus 10, the worst plus minus there for the Rockets. Finally, Jeff Green didn't have a great game. He was out there for 18 minutes. He grabbed 7 boards, but he was 1 for 5 from 3, 1 for 5 overall. So finally, he didn't have a great game against the Thunder. He was being the Thunder killer those last couple of games. Man, it was brutal. Looking like a all-star out there some of those games. And like I said earlier, Danielle Galinari got cooking this game. 25 points, grabbed 5 boards, had 2 steals. He knocked down 4 3-pointers, knocked down some in that fourth quarter. He got going in that second quarter. He kind of led the charge for the Thunder to keep it close in that second quarter. That's where he really shined. Lou Dort, like I said, knocked down 2 threes. Shea didn't look too great. He was 4 for 11, but he hit 2 3-pointers, hit some step-back threes. And he had 6 assists, so he's out there, controlling the ball. 6 assists, that's pretty big. Dennis Schroede, I felt like he played better than what his stat sheet showed. He was 5 for 16, 0 for 5 from 3, but he was getting to the basket. He grabbed 8 boards. He had 2 assists, 12 points. And he hit a clutch layup to tie the game for the Thunder, I think. And then he was obviously playing defense on Harden. I think Dennis Schroede had a way better game than what his stat sheet showed. Steven Adams grabbed 14 rebounds, which is exactly what we need from him. I would like to see him grab 10 points too there, but low scoring game for the playoffs, and since the NBA's been in the bubble, and defense is where the Thunder want this series to be. You don't want a 3-point shootout going against the Rockets because they're unless they pull a 0 for 27, they're probably going to beat you at that. Thunder didn't really have to go to that small ball lineup. They didn't have to go with either Darius Baisley playing the center or Danielle Galinari playing the center. They kind of stuck to their three-point guard lineup in that fourth quarter, which is what's been clutch for them in that fourth quarter this whole game. Chris Paul has just been amazing this year. I mean, 40 minutes, 28 points. He was plus 20, plus minus. Chris Paul was just the man this game. He was clutch, clutch Paul out there. Now, going into Game 7, the Thunder have to play the Thunder's way like they did this game. They didn't let the Rockets go on a huge run except for there in that fourth quarter. And even then, Thunder were still only down by 6, and then Chris Paul took over because that's what he does. Thunder had to play defense. Obviously, if the Thunder just aren't playing well, moving to that small ball lineup helps. But you don't want to have to move to that small ball lineup. Play the Thunder's game. Obviously, I like the small ball lineup because, when the offense stall, the Thunder's offense just stalls sometimes. That's just who we are. It's not always going to be cooking the whole entire game. So sometimes that small ball lineup helps, but you want to be playing the Thunder's game where Darius Baisley is playing the 4 and Nerlens Noel or Steven Adams is at center, or Danielle Galinari is out there playing the 4, and we're getting him the ball. We need to see more screens for Galinari, get him some threes, get him going early, and then he can have even more points this game. He didn't even have to hit 30 minutes this game, which is what I like to see. Obviously we like Galinari and Steven Adams, but those two guys play really well when they stay around 25 to 28 minutes. That's just their sweet spot. That's where they thrive. They're not tired. They're not exhausted in that fourth quarter. That's just what those two guys need. Adams did hit 31 minutes, but he was having a good game, and he's grabbing boards, 14 rebounds. And I think in the Game 7, Gilgeous-Alexander has to be aggressive. Thunder have to find a way to get him to the basket against his Rockets defense. Obviously, his shooting is much needed for the Thunder to win, but when he's getting to the basket, when he's being aggressive, when he's keeping the defense guessing, that's exactly when he's at his best. And I think the Thunder really do need him to win that Game 7. Galinari and Gilgeous-Alexander, had to play good those first 3 quarters, and then Dennis Schroede and Chris Paul can get it done that fourth quarter. That's where that's what they do. That's what they've done all year. Even Dennis Schroede last year was better in the second half than he was the first half. Chris Paul has been clutch in the fourth quarter this whole entire game, whole entire series. Just all year, Chris Paul has been good in the fourth quarter. Keep Lou Dort out of foul trouble is going to be key. Obviously, that's hard playing against James Harden. It's going to be tough to do, but it's something the Thunder have to work on. Terence Ferguson didn't look great this game, those 5 minutes he played. So, keeping Lou Dort out of foul trouble, keeping Dennis Schroede out of foul trouble is going to be key in this Game 7. Just what the Thunder have to do is play their way. Clean it up on the fast breaks a little bit. Those fast breaks are still so awkward. I hate watching these fast breaks. But that's just how it got to be. Clean up the fast breaks, get the points off turnovers. Play your game. Don't ISO ball. Let's move the ball around until we get to the fourth quarter. Then you can let Chris Paul. Then you can let him go to work. If the Rockets are smart, they'll change it up and they won't just let Chris Paul get a screen and Robert Covington's guarding him. So you might have a different strategy going into the fourth quarter of this next game if it's close. So make an adjustment there. So I don't. If Mike D'Antoni's a good coach, I don't see the Rockets switching everything in that fourth quarter again like they did this game, because Chris Paul did it 3 times in a row and he had his way with it. Anyways, guys, that's it for me from this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, don't forget hit that like and that subscribe button, and we will see you next time.